Always give credit where credit is due. When I came to this university about 15 years ago, I wanted to be a homicide detective because I really liked that show, Homicide Life on TV. Life on the Street. Sorry, Life on the Street. Homicide Life on the Street. So I had these like ardent fantasies of myself working for the Ann Arbor PD homicide unit where I'd be like the rookie and all the seasoned veterans would be like, make the coffee, but then the case would come in and then I would be the one to crack the case. Without a doubt. So I came into Eastern University and I declared my major as criminal justice and I got all my classes lined up. And my very first class is logic. And I'm thinking, here we go. I'm great at logic puzzles. I'm about to start cracking cases. And I'm super excited. So I open my book and it's like, if P, then Q. If Q, then not P. So I became a communication major. But that was really my problem when I came to Eastern is I was really too invested in way too many things. Yeah, I wanted to be a homicide detective because like I guess I wanted to be on TV. I wanted to be in the communication department because I love that department. I mean, I always have. I wanted to be a woman studies scholar. And I wanted to be a speech language pathologist. I just couldn't decide what I wanted to do. Ultimately, I ended up getting 2 bachelor's degrees from this university, one in communication and one in speech language pathology. I even went on to the master's program in speech language pathology before I realized that while I completely appreciate what speech language pathologists do, I do not have the creativity to play Guess Who and draw pictures all day. And it's awesome that people do, but that wasn't for me. So I went back to the communication department and I was teaching in that department. But then I recognized that there was a scientific part of me uh, that wanted to do more. And my best girlfriend, who also got her degree from a really wonderful speech language pathology program here, for those that are in it, it is an extraordinary program. But she decided it wasn't for her as well, and she was going to move on to audiology, which is the study of hearing science. And we had taken the introductory courses, and I thought that was really interesting to me too. So sure, I'll go along with her, and that this would be something we could do together. And we were really excelling in it. My father is hearing impaired, and so I felt I had a real close identity with the audiology community. So around that same time, a couple years in, the stresses of getting your doctorate start to, you know, make you stressed out. So I ultimately put on a little weight, and that didn't really bother me as far as vanity goes. My student Mandy's in the audience, who sees how I dress every day as a teacher, can attest to that. But more than anything, I just really hate shopping for new clothes. So my ex-husband, who is a long-distance runner, and we're still very good friends, has really started. He's running marathons now, and so I had him set me up with a running regime. And so I was doing a really good job. I couldn't do the couch to 5K thing; it just wasn't my thing. So I started this really slow running regime where I was running a couple miles a week, and I was feeling really good about it. There's going to be a couple stories here that are going to seem tangential, but they'll all make sense along the way. So when in the midst of the doctoral program, because we are audiology students, we have to test each other's hearing. At one point during my education, my hearing test came back abnormal, and I had what's called a low frequency hearing loss. Now I know that doesn't make sense to the layperson, but that's a very atypical hearing loss to have. Typically, if you have hearing loss, it's going to be high frequency sensory neural or conductive low frequency. I know that doesn't make sense now. But so me being the hypochondriac, I go home and Google, what does that mean? And it comes up immediately, MS. And so I think, oh my God, I've got MS. And I know this is true because my mom's sister has MS. She has 3 first cousins with MS. She's a maternal grandmother with MS. I have MS. And everyone's like, stop freaking out. There could be a number of reasons. There's a variety of things. Now, for those of you who don't know what multiple sclerosis is, it's a brainstem disorder. Now, your brainstem is, and I'm a little science nerd. I mean, yeah, I'm in communication, but I'm also a little bit of a science nerd, so I'll try and keep it brief. But the brainstem is responsible for ultimately much of the function of your basic body needs. And multiple sclerosis is what we call a demyelination disorder. So there are neurons in your brain, and those are responsible for sending the electronic transmissions throughout your body, which make your arms work, which make you be able to stick out your tongue at people, say inappropriate things. It's all sort of formed from that. So, and neurons have a little bar across them, and along that bar, they have 3 pieces called myelin sheaths. That's fat. That's all it is. It's fat. And this fat is actually awesome in your brain because what it does is it sends the transmission down the neuron so that it can make its way to your toe so that you can like prove that you can put your big toe down and leave all them up or whatever. But with people with MS, the fat or the myelin starts to deteriorate, and eventually those signals don't process as quickly. So here I am panicking that I have MS, and everyone's telling me to just be calm. A few months later, we also run these tests in audiology called auditory brainstem responses. And again, not to get jargony, what we do is you just put electrodes on the head, send sound in the ear, and monitor how sound moves from the ear to the brain. If you're a normal person, you should have 1, 3, 5. Those are your peaks. When we tested mine, because we were testing things out, I had 1, 3, 5. So instantly, I raced to my intriguing human auditory evoked potentials book. And we find the scan that matches my ABR, as it's called, auditory brainstem response. And it says, this figure shows the different kinds of ABR waveforms that can be recorded in patients with MS. Sometimes your worst fears are realized. So I'm going to take you back a couple thousand years to biblical times to a man called Job. So if you're not familiar with Job, he was constantly questioning God for all the trials he put him through. Like bring it back 2,000 more years, let's go to 1994. And if you know what I'm talking about Winter Olympics, Tanya Harding, Nancy Kerrigan. Maybe a little too young for it, but it was a big deal because in 1994, Jeff Gillooly, who is Tanya Harding's husband, boyfriend, etc., took a lead pipe and bashed Nancy Kerrigan, who was America's sweetheart, in the knee. And then there was this horrible image everywhere in the media of Nancy Kerrigan holding onto her knee and screaming, "Why?" So we've got Joe, we've got Nancy Kerrigan, and now we've got Nina. So, and I can't tell you that I was really a good sport about it initially. I think that probably I had my fair share of pity parties, thinking, okay, why? I feel like I'm a decent person. What's wrong? And they say it's not a genetic disorder, but here I've got these several people related to me with this disorder. And I would have these from time to time, and I thought I've just started running. And now here I am facing years of pain and limited ambulation. And probably one of the things that people don't know about MS, and probably the most fearful for me, is the deterioration of your cognition. So I would have pity parties to myself a lot. And one summer night about a year and a half ago, I was having one of those pity parties where I was sitting on my bathroom floor and my knees were tucked into my chest and my head was in my arms and I was crying. And I stopped myself and I stretched out my legs and I thought, yeah, they still work right now. And at 2 in the morning, I suited up and I started running. And I ran for 45 minutes, listening to the same song on repeat over and over again. And it felt great. And I didn't stop. And I just kept running and running. And then I lost 40 pounds, which was great because, then I didn't have to worry about going to TJ Maxx or wherever else I would go to buy one pair of pants. So I did. I lost weight and that was great. But more than anything, I liked the feeling of running on the street and continuing to put one foot in front of the other while my brain could still handle it. And yeah, I am scared about the idea that I'm probably going to have to walk with a cane or be in a wheelchair. If I can be honest with you, the most fearful part is knowing that I'm going to lose my intellect, my wit, my cleverness. That's scary. So if I can leave you with one piece of advice, it's this. Don't exercise and excel in your studies because you're supposed to or because someone told you to. Run, swim, walk, laugh, read, and write because you still can. Thank you.